Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
I have a feeling you can.
Good evening, everyone. It's January 9th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. And this is the monthly meeting of Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. There are no members of the public, so the first order of business is to approve our agenda.
I move we approve. Second.
Okay, thank you, Bill and Rick. Any additions, changes, complaints? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next, the minutes from our previous meeting. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
And Micah, thank you. Any discussion on those?
Just a reminder, what was the reason that we pushed those and delayed them to this meeting? Was that for the?
We did not.
Okay, then I am way off.
So this is.
No, we
December.
pushed the extension of Route B and 65
Okay.
discussion, I think,
Oh,
right.
because we just didn't have enough information.
okay.
I think Ross didn't have numbers.
Okay.
Right, and I still don't. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Now I'm straight. Good.
Okay. Anything else for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous, thank you. Thanks to Dina for pulling them together. Then back to staff report.
All right, I'm going to share my screen real quick. First thing on here is our annual public transit assistance program application. I completed that in December after our last meeting. Basically, this is the state government giving us money to fund our transit program for the year. So our annual expenses, a little bit less than $2.5 million for bus service. You can see the fixed route, the paratransit, and the small administrative fee that goes into those expenses. Our revenue was a little bit over $410,000. That's a combination of fares and advertising. And then you subtract those two numbers from each other to get our net operating deficit, which that's the amount that the PTAP grant funding is kind of calculated from. Our estimated state and federal combined funding is $1.4 million, which leaves our estimated local share at $634,000 and some change. So, questions on that?
No matter how good an application you write, we still get the same amount, right?
Yes, there's really no written portion of this. It's just put the numbers into a spreadsheet and check the boxes to make sure you're complying with all the state and federal laws.
Very good.
So,
anything else?
This is limited to the city of Fitchburg.
Yes, this is just Fitchburg.
How are the fares allocated to Fitchburg?
So any fare that is collected in the city, I believe, is how we get that credited to us, basically.
So if you started a ride in Madison and got off in Fitchburg, no fare. But if you started a ride in Fitchburg and you went to Madison, then the fare comes to the city.
Right.
But round
So-
trip, we'd be, okay,
Yeah.
you know.
The
it'd be-
rides are mostly balanced,
Sure.
and so we get half of the round trip.
That's the allocation is essentially if you got on a transit bus in
Yep.
the city limits, then the fare is
Only
allocated to the
that's
city of
the
Fitchburg.
case, yeah.
And the same with advertising or some other form?
Advertising is based on the amount of, I believe they're paid for advertising based on the amount of hours the bus is in service.
In the city.
And then, yeah, they know how many hours of bus service Fitchburg has, and then it's kind of.
So we just get a proportional share, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter which bus the advertising is on and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
You know, what's interesting about this is, I think we only started applying for this ourselves in like 2021 or something. Right, because this is my understanding is that we used to do it as a pass-through from Madison Metro, they used to apply
Oh,
for
possibly.
the entire network, but the problem is that Madison and Milwaukee get some sort of worse deal from the state of Wisconsin,
That's right, they
significantly
get
worse.
hosed by the legislature.
Yes.
So when we started applying, we got significantly more funding, like, so it was something like $50,000 more or something, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because Madison and Milwaukee are tier A communities for this, we are tier B. And then there's, tier C is like, you know, you run your own shuttle kind of thing. But since we don't own any of our assets, we're not eligible for the state funding. And because we're tier B, we're eligible for the federal funding. So we're kind of, basically Madison gets a little bit of each pot and we get a much higher portion of the federal pot it's kind of how it works. So it's more complicated than that.
I think it ended up being a significant
Yes,
net positive
it
for the
is.
city to apply for it ourselves, but obviously more work.
Yeah.
For you.
It's not too bad now that I know how to do it.
Okay.
They didn't tell me I did it wrong this year, last year, so.
And we got the money.
I was gonna say, did the check clear? We're good.
So moving on, I've got some project updates. Sain Phase 2, which is the southern portion of that project. These contracts are going to go to Common Council for referral, then Board of Public Works on the 27th, and then to Finance and Common Council on the 28th. The contractor for that is Parisi for this $3.5 million number that you see here. And then for inspection, that will be awarded to Rupert Milkie for a little bit under $250,000. Then Sain Phase 3, this project is administered and run by the state, but it has the same timeline for the authorizing payments as Sain Phase 2. Basically, we have a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant for a little bit over $1.7 million. It's a 90% federal, 10% local split. And then this construction and inspection number, this basically $1.6 million, that's the remainder of the project after that grant. So basically the state will pay the contractor that they've awarded the contract to and then subtract the eligible funds from the grant and then bill us for the remainder. So, any questions on Sain Road?
Do we know their contractor?
Yes, they are using Rock Road.
Okay.
So,
Handy if it was Parisi, but,
Parisi is a subcontractor
oh,
on that project.
okay.
So, we were hoping it would be the same as well, but the price is
Subcontractor's
right.
good,
Yeah.
because that way they can coordinate better.
Yep.
So what's the estimated cost of Phase 3?
Estimated cost of Phase 3 is whatever those two numbers are added together.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the total cost, yeah,
3.3
The
million?
grant plus the WISTA, or the,
Yep.
3.3.
Sorry, I should have had that in there.
Is this close to the budget?
It's under.
It's under?
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
That's been happening a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean,
Did we budget over?
estimating for projects, we
We finally
try
started.
not to have to do budget amendments for them, so.
I was gonna say, don't say that out loud.
But it was a chronic issue before where literally everything required a budget amendment. It was wild.
Part of that is, 2, 3, 4 years ago, construction prices spiked extremely high for COVID. And they haven't really gone back down, but just our estimates have caught up to it,
Yeah. The CIP is
We
not
have a
accurate.
few years of history on this new inflation pricing, so.
Ross, I wanted to ask a little bit on this too. Since it's split into 2 and 3, something I've been kind of hearing is, why is it taking so long with, to get all of the work done when we had, it's been what, it'll be 2 summers and a year and a half ago from today to get the first phase done. Can you talk a little bit about why phase 2, since that wasn't waiting on the federal grant, or was it waiting on the federal grant? So could we have done phase 2 in 24 and then phase 3, which is where the federal grant is coming in 25, for example?
Yeah, so originally this project was scheduled to be basically 2 years for phase 1, then phase 2, then phase 3. Phase 2 had some issues with land acquisition and permitting from the state. There's that DNR trailhead that's it's up at the intersection with McCoy, so physically it's in the phase 3 project limits, but it's part of phase 2 because we didn't want to mix that up with this other grant part of the project. So that kind of property and permitting issue is what delayed phase 2 by a year. So I can have more details on that if you'd like, but
Yeah, I think that kind of gets
Okay.
gets the gist of it. So.
Right. So yeah, any other questions on that? All right. Then moving on to Fitchrona Road. I don't know if any of you get calls from any residents in that area, but right-of-way and easement staking happened this week. We're doing a couple of adjustments to the transportation project plat, and then that will end up going to council to get approved and then recorded. And basically, we're just in the real estate acquisition phase of that project.
I would expect to get the most calls when the tree removals happen. When do you think that will be?
So some of that will start when the utilities go in. I believe it's Alliant is working on the town of Verona side of the road, and I anticipate they will need to take down some trees in the right-of-way to move their lines. That would probably be early April at this point is my guess. Basically, construction schedule, the utilities are going to go in first. We're gonna implement basically our full road closure. They're gonna move all their lines and gas mains out of the way, and then our contractor is gonna come in and do the actual road work. So
there will be a full road closure
it'll be open to local traffic only. Yeah, there's a detour that goes out into the town of Verona and kind of takes Nesbitt, takes McKee and over to Seminole Highway.
And sorry, I don't remember what the nature of that project is.
So the main gist of it is there will be a roundabout at Fitchrona and Lacey, and basically full urban reconstruction with curb and gutter of Fitchrona from Tonto Trail, which is a couple streets south of Lacey, all the way north to where the existing roundabout at Nesbitt Road is.
Okay.
So that'll all be a fully updated urban cross section. It's gonna have bike lanes, curb and gutter, all that, and then a 10-foot multi-use path on the east side, on the Fitchburg side.
Okay, thank you.
Lacey will have the same cross-section that the new part does down to the roundabout.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it will also, we're dealing with the stormwater issues
Yes.
as well.
Yes, there's a lot of stormwater. big 60-inch kind of detention pipes under the roundabout to get a little bit more treatment and help kind of slow down some of the flood flows into Goose Lake. And then there's also a separate project that's trying to address some of the issues with Goose Lake. Basically, if we try to put more water into Goose Lake, we'll just get a backflow condition where basically Goose Lake will fill up and then kind of backflow into the storm sewer that we're going to install. So we have to do work on the outflow of Goose Lake to lower that a little bit.
That goes to Badger Mill Creek?
That is one of the theories, yes.
I hope they have it worked out.
Yeah, the MMSD has to do some work. They were gonna just close off their effluent line, but now they may or may not be able to do that.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, they had CARPC put a lot more conditions on them closing that, so.
The effluent line is going by goes through the Kyle Steger Greenway site, and so we have to work around it with our swale.
Do we ever finalize an MOU with the town of Verona about cost share for this project?
We have not, that's in the works as well.
Okay. But we're kind of the driving force behind it, so like we're running the show and
We're the lead.
hey, yeah,
agency.
the lead, yes.
Yes, correct. It'll be a Fitchburg bid project, and they'll have a cost share, and then we'll also outline maintenance responsibilities going forward, so.
And we think they're good for it.
Yes, they will be. We've had multiple discussions with Sarah Gaskell, the Verona administrator, and then Chris Barnes, the director of public works.
I was just thinking of
Does
this.
Sarah work for the town?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just thinking of if we start getting those concerns when the trees come down, do we take that call or do we pass it on? So it's good to know that we will take it and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on how angry the person is.
If they're angry, they're going directly to your line.
There is, where Lacey tees onto Fitch-Rona, there is what some think is an Indian marker tree there that will have to come down.
Yes, we have, we employed an arborist who used a very fancy drill, basically, that basically aged those trees to 80 years old. So they're not any
Indian.
sort of marker tree.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, anything else on Fitch-Rona?
It's a good thing to know for the angry callers.
Who does that shelter and restroom facility belong to that's at the trailhead there?
Fitchburg Parks.
Fitchburg's.
At the
Is that
bike park?
Fitchburg?
Yeah, that's the
that's
Fitchburg Park.
Okay. And are there any changes to that as a part of
Not
this?
as part of this project. There's kind of a separate project to expand the parking lot there, but that will, I believe that's scheduled, actually I know that's scheduled for after this, so.
So the parking lot in its current form will be untouched.
Correct.
And local traffic only.
Mhm.
But it would be smarter to just bike there.
There you go. Along the Military Ridge State Trail and not on the under construction.
Yes.
Trail.
I've also had conversations with Scott Endel about getting some bike parking at the bike park. As well as, why did we put the women's room on the backside in the dark near the forest?
Yeah.
I'll move on to Wayland Road.
Yes.
Paved shoulders. I've got final-ish plans from our designer, so I'm going to be sending out letters to residents along Wayland Road, hopefully next week, to basically start getting, permission to do some grading on private property. Goal is to not purchase any temporary easement for that project. But we'll see if all of the residents are okay with that.
Will these be individualized letters?
They will only be sent to residents that will be impacted by this,
By the grading.
Yeah, basically I'm just gonna try to schedule a time to meet with them via these letters.
Okay.
Then, as far as Rapid Route B, this is North-South BRT. We are negotiating a 3-party maintenance agreement between City of Madison, City of Fitchburg, and Dane County. Basically just iron out who's responsible for what, and basically ensure Dane County will allow this on their road.
This is maintenance of the roads?
So, maintenance of the road and of the shelters. So, we're adding a bunch of paint to the road that Dane County doesn't really want to have to maintain. Technically, all these new bus stations will be inside the Dane County right-of-way. But this agreement will basically say Fitchburg is responsible for these things, City of Madison is responsible for stuff like, the ticket machines and stuff like that, that we really don't want to have a part in. They'll bill us for it, but yeah. And then Dane County will be responsible for, the pavement on the road still. We want to spell that out. We have a current maintenance agreement with them, but it doesn't involve the City of Madison, so. All right.
Were they receptive of our comments on the 30% plans?
Yes, yeah. I think we actually haven't had a meeting, design meeting since our last TTC meeting, I believe. But I did forward them along, and especially the bike path reroute on the north end.
Oh, yeah.
That was, they responded very positively to that, and then most of the other ones as well. So I can have an update on that next time we have a design meeting, which should be next week.
But I bet we're not getting Sharrows yet.
That would be the one that I wouldn't necessarily expect.
Hold my breath. All right.
Then Greenway Cross and Coho. I figured you would say
The collective ooh.
yeah. So basically this is an image of, I guess for context, I think some people know more about this than others. We've been getting complaints about this intersection. It's right off of Fish Hatchery Road. Basically right now it's a 2-way stop that gets run a lot of the time. And then Greenway Cross is the through street. But if you're turning onto Coho, sometimes cars will, go around you illegally, cut you off, stuff like that. So we're looking at putting in a temporary roundabout with, this is rubber curbing, and then these sign bases.
So this is not a picture of Fitchburg, right?
Correct. This is in Rockford.
Okay.
So basically, this is an example. It'll be about a 20-foot diameter. We're gonna leave the stop control on Coho and then add yield signs on Greenway Cross and have this structure in the middle. Leave it up for 6 months. We haven't decided on a final time frame for that yet, but I think 6 months makes the most sense. And then make a decision on whether this worked or not, and whether we want to install something more permanent. So,
Any thought to, I see there's crosswalks there and there's not on our intersection. Any thought to putting crosswalks there as well? And does that
yes, that
impact
would.
on car driver behavior?
We haven't really talked about that, but I would expect us to paint those when we put this in. Or actually, we'll probably paint the crosswalks in the spring, and this will be put in sooner. Because we can't paint when it's under 45 degrees.
Sure.
So,
When do you think this might be installed?
as soon as I buy all this stuff tomorrow and it ships, so hopefully 3-4 weeks. As long as we don't get like a bunch of snow or something where Mark and his crews are busy.
Are they glued down or are they just?
They're anchored. They're there's long anchor bolts that go into the asphalt.
Wow.
And is there any lighting or it's just reflected?
There's street lights there right now, but there's no lighting in this install.
If you run straight into that with your car, what will happen to your car or to the roundabout?
The roundabout, the signs will probably get dented. The rubber curb, I'd expect, would be fine. Car
Fancy
probably
poles could get damaged.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like running over any other concrete curb.
Okay, but it's not, all the materials are rubber, right?
Yeah, besides
That's
the
not gonna
signs
save you
and the
there.
sign bases.
Hockey puck rubber, not,
Yeah.
not pillow rubber.
Bouncy house rubber, yeah.
I think it's enough of a deterrent that nobody's gonna intentionally run into it.
Yeah, all the signs and all the uprights is to make it visible,
Do you worry that people will see it as a roundabout and then not stop at the stop signs that are, that you're leaving out?
I don't see that as an issue because the stop signs will still be there. That was kind of our
They're not
goal.
new stop signs,
Not
they're
yet
existing.
changing it, yeah.
You have a couple more of those red stripes like you put up on Raritan?
Those we already have here.
Oh, okay.
They weren't enough. We'll make a change. I remember the Safe Streets for All grant is the planning grants for safety plans includes explicitly the possibility of buying this kind of material. So is this enough that we should consider stocking up on these kinds of temporary treatments for use around the city and apply for that grant?
I think that will depend on how successful this commission and administration and elected officials see this trial as being. So,
And are these reusable then if we,
Yes.
so we could try this again next year on another street if it goes well?
Yeah, basically you just take the lag bolts out. You might have to buy some new hardware to install it. These sign bases have wheels on them. They're for festivals and stuff like that. So yeah.
Is there any patchwork required then after removing the bolts from the asphalt?
No, I mean we could fill them with epoxy, but you can also just leave it. And if it was a brand new street, then I would say yes, we should patch it somehow.
Just seal it with crack filling material?
Yeah. Or you can use epoxy or some sort of concrete grout. We use those for utility potholing. They put in 6-inch or 4-inch holes to find the water main when they're doing directional drilling, and we fill those with grout, and that holds up better than the rest of the road usually.
And is the measure of success of the trial that less people complain?
No.
You want more people to complain?
Well, no, I mean about cars speeding or running the stop sign. In other words, how do you know that this was successful? You're not putting a camera out.
We have a resident that will share that.
One
some people
person's
that are-
opinion is not.
But that is one thing that I want to make clear on this is that I'm not sure that this will actually stop people complaining about this intersection.
Okay.
It's a hard intersection.
Right. I think, Micah, like you said, if a couple people still run the stop sign or go around the roundabout the wrong way, I think there's still a good chance that we will get complaints, whether it's from this resident or from someone else.
But running the stop sign with this is better than running the stop sign in a,
without
it.
Yep. So we're gonna be doing observation, basically seeing compliance rates. If this gets run into 6 times in the first month, then we'll know we should probably do something else.
We don't have the possibility to put a camera there though, do we?
Not currently. We don't really have portable cameras or anything, to my knowledge.
You need like solar power and Wi-Fi enabled.
Oh, right, yeah. I just, that would be an objective measure of whether it changes people's behavior rather than a particular person that sees certain things happen at certain times of the day.
So that's why we'll have observation. I'll have one of my technicians will unfortunately have to sit out there for a few hours.
If it's not in a police car, then perhaps that actually is. But I mean, if a police car is sitting there, that's going to change people's behavior.
Right.
They're incognito.
They'll be dressed as a tree.
Ross, when we get the streetlight software, will the data that it provides help analyze this intersection? And will we get any historical data, or is it just from the point of purchase forward?
So the streetlight data, I can set a date range that I want a report from. So I can set it to before this was installed.
Okay.
From my understanding, they don't upload new data. Sometimes they do it at a 3-month interval, sometimes at a 6-month interval, because basically they pull down, a batch of data from the federal government, which is their main data source, and then they do a bunch of validation on it, make sure it's good data, run it against their actual physical counters that they have in the field, and then they upload it to the actual software where I could pull it down and make reports from it. So I won't really be able to look at anything for a while after this is installed.
Right. So the resolution of the data, really you're looking at like calendar quarter-ish probably, or worse.
You could look at the historical data from the before, now, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I can also put up, we still have our radar counters. I can put one of those up on Greenway Cross. I have historical data from those in this area, so.
I guess my first question still stands. The data that it provides, will that be useful in analyzing what's going on at this intersection?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So you can tell whether people are coming to a stop or like, I don't know, average speed through the intersection or something?
Yes, yeah, average speed in this stretch of roadway.
And you can, based on that, you have a pretty good feel as to whether people are, how much of a stop they're actually coming to?
Yes.
How much they're slowing down.
Yeah.
And what if any proactive communication have we done to folks in this area? I mean, we've, obviously had complaints about it. Have we told people, hey, this is what's coming? Or is part of the pilot, the test here, to not tell people and see how they react? And, and I mean that like a genuine question. Like, is that part of the test, the hypothesis, if you will? Like to see if it's too.
So we haven't done any communication with the neighborhood yet. I'm going to be doing that before this is installed. This area is a little more difficult than a lot of other places in the city to send out letters to, because there's a lot of apartments in this area that, and we tend to get a lot of bounce backs from when we send letters out to apartments. So never quite sure if letters are actually getting to residents that should see them. But we're planning on doing social media, posts on our website, stuff like that.
Is there still one of our bus shelters? I'm thinking of post. Is there a bus shelter there that you could post on? In the lower right quadrant. There. Take a street view, look at that. I think that's where I used to host my mayor meetings. Right there, yeah. Yeah, so there's a nearby bus shelter just east of that with a little box that Lisa has the security screwdriver to put handouts in it.
But yeah, people should, we're not gonna get in touch with everyone who drives through this intersection, obviously. That's the whole point of
so many
the signs and the, reflective parts of this is people should still know what to do when they get there. So.
What about the webinar?
That's just a webinar that I found today that I'm going to. I'm actually gonna have to watch the recording because I'll be on vacation. But basically this is a modular roundabout That's basically, it doesn't have to be temporary, it's just installed within an existing intersection. So ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, puts this on. I'm a member. If any of you really want to go, it's $300 for non-members. It's free for members, so.
Sure is tempting.
So you have to go on vacation with Ross to see it.
So, yeah.
All right, well, put the highlights in your next staff report.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah. This is just a quick map of the streets we're doing as part of our 2025 ARPA resurfacing project. We'll be holding a public information meeting soon about this. We don't have that scheduled yet, but we will soon. This is all in the Belmar neighborhood, Belmar and Renaissance on the Park. So, questions on ARPA resurfacing?
It stands for what?
American Rescue Plan Act. So this is basically money that was designated by the federal government during and after COVID. And some of it we can use on resurfacing. So we've been doing extra street work the last couple of years.
So this is, I wasn't around when this was funded, so this is kind of a catch-up over and above the annual budget for street resurfacing,
Yes.
which is separately increasing?
Yep.
Okay.
And we're using the funds, we had to obligate the funds by the end of 2024, and they had to be
Yes.
spent by the end of 2026, I think.
Yes, so this project was bid last year. We've already awarded it. But we did that in December or November, I don't remember which. And the work will actually be done this year, sorry.
And that's, I don't want to say just resurfacing, but it is limited to resurfacing and not any other like sidewalks or anything like that in that area?
Correct.
Gutter repairs.
No sidewalk, but we do curb and gutter repairs when we do resurfacing. So some of these streets we're doing a full depth resurface, 4.5 inches of asphalt. Some of these streets we are doing 2-inch mill and overlays because the streets are in better condition and it's cheaper. We can basically get the whole neighborhood done if we don't full depth resurface all of them.
And get them all in sync.
Exactly.
But to be clear, we used ARPA money for more than this. This is just one piece of
Right.
what we've done with the money.
Yes, there was a separate ARPA project last year and a whole bunch of other non-street projects as well.
But it was all one-time things
One-time
because it was one-time money.
It seems like we're doing about 80% of the street surface in that neighborhood. Is there explanation that we've excluded certain stretches?
Because we did the other streets last year.
They were done.
Yeah, some of them were ARPA funded, some of them were our regular resurfacing funded.
So Sentinel Pass, Apache, Crescent are already done.
Correct. And then these few streets in Renaissance on the Park, those were installed at a later date than the rest of the neighborhood, so those are in good shape still. So, then moving on to regular resurfacing. This is a draft map. This project has not been finalized or bid yet, but these are the streets that we're planning on doing. Longford Terrace, Leopold Way, Marketplace Drive, Executive Drive, Seminole Court, which might be the shortest street in the city. A little bit of Schumann Drive on the west side of Seminole Highway, and then Osmondson Road, and then this little section, and then Pembroke Court. We're also doing Went Road, but that's way to the south, and it completely screwed up this map.
And that would be Went Road from where to where?
The full length. It's from
Adams to County M.
Yes.
Any plans to change any of the traffic calming on Leopold Way?
No. The only change will be changing those speed humps from asphalt to concrete. Our new spec is only concrete speed humps. So.
Very good.
And that street will remain open? That's just such a busy street because it's that only connection.
Yes, so we haven't finalized our traffic control for this, but we have talked about doing that in halves where we do, one side of the street and flag it on the other side. We haven't finalized that yet.
Seems particularly tricky for this one because there's no good detour.
Right, you would have to go all the way out to McKee and Fish Hatch, basically, so. But that's also the reason that the speed humps had to be installed. So. And then just for context, Longford and Leopold, those are where we are getting some LRIP grant money for next year. We get that every other year. We get like 75 grand. So
Remind us what LRIF stands for.
Local Road Improvement Program.
That's state or federal?
That's state. So basically, you get a certain amount of money determined by the mileage of roads you have. And so we get 75 grand every other year.
This is in response to the spreadsheet you said WISDOT every year of all our road mileage, right?
Yeah, that's how they figure it out. Yeah. But they always reduce the mileage, I say, so.
They don't count Seminole Court.
I was gonna say, we gotta make Seminole Court longer.
Seminole Court is where I got left hooked on my bike in 2010, so I'll always be right on my memory.
So then just some upcoming ordinances. We've talked about Vision Zero, obviously. That's under review by the city attorney and administration, and I'll bring that to our next meeting. And then also a truck route ordinance. We're working through this internally right now with a map and language for the ordinance based on other municipalities. Is that something TTC would be interested in reviewing?
I want to speak for myself. I've been arguing for a truck route system since the comp plan around 2008, so I think it's a terrific idea. I think the advantage is that you can designate routes that you can engineer for heavier truck traffic, and so generally our truck routes are going to include all our county roads, but in addition to that, because we have quarries, I think it's important that we have truck routes and that we keep those dump trucks from Yahara Materials going down Commerce Park Drive instead of Seminole Highway.
And all those roads that we have quarries on and heavy truck traffic are designed for that traffic already. They're just not specifically designated in a map or with signs,
So what's the sense of commissioners? Do you want to see that come here for our feedback and recommendation to council?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd be interested.
Yeah.
Certainly don't think it would hurt.
Yeah. So let the record show that.
All right. And that's my staff report.
Thank you. Any other questions about transportation matters for staff?
I have one, and Ross, it's an email I sent you a couple months ago, following up on some potential crosswalk improvements in Swan Creek on East Sherrill Parkway. It's at Crinkle Route and Big Blue Stem Parkway or Sunflower Drive, kind of in that general area where there's that new development. The private road is in, 57 more houses going in there. We've got the B-cycle station, the parks, the paths, everything. So that's an area that I think could use some improvements, and I know I'd emailed you about that, so I just wanted to see if you had an update on that project.
Yeah, we are planning on painting those crosswalks when the weather is cooperative in the spring. So basically every crosswalk we paint now, we're trying to make it a type 2 continental block or like zebra crossing. They're more visible, so we'll paint them that way.
And in terms of any signage then, are we able to put anything in the medians or even the diagonal, like the yellow signs on either side? Because you've got the bend if you're coming west from Honeysuckle, and then if you're coming east from kind of the S-curves there, you come around a corner there as well. So I don't know if we can get like a pedestrian crossing ahead, the warning signs installed maybe half a block back or so, just since both of those are pretty heavily utilized path crossings. And they're both kind of at a, like, if you're coming one direction, it's fine, but if you're going the other direction, visibility is a little bit of a challenge. And especially with, it's 30 now, luckily it's certainly been less of an issue since we lowered the speed limit there, but it's still, still people go 35 or a little bit faster even, so.
Yeah, I can definitely look at the vision distances for those crosswalks and put up advanced warning signs if warranted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just had a question about, ever since I learned that some of the rectangular flashing beacons are supposed to be thermally activated, I've been excited when I approach them to see. and so far I haven't seen one function.
So we only have one in the
that's
city that
Cannonball,
is
right?
supposed to be thermally activated. It has not been working, but we do have a technician coming next week, and that is the Cannonball Path one on Seminole Highway.
Thank you.
So we've been trying to troubleshoot it over the phone with their technicians. Has not worked, so they've got somebody coming to fix it.
So I see you just walking up
Yeah.
to it, and turning around and walking back up to it.
Anytime I have free time, I go over there and try it out.
And actually, that raises one more question about our RFBs. Did we get those activated at Lacey and the Badger State Trail, and then the lights turned on the new stretch of Lacey there west of Seminole?
So no, that is still waiting on an electrical service install from MG&E. That will be so that electrical service needs an easement from the city. It crosses city-owned property. So that will be at Common Council for approval on the 14th of January. Then they'll install that service, hopefully a week or two after that. MG&E is going to install the service further west at Commerce Park to power that half of the streetlights. I've issued payment to them for that, and we're on their schedule now. I'm waiting on an email for the actual date, the big date.
Whenever I drive by Crescent Crossing, I look over there to see if they have trenched across our easement yet.
Yeah, they won't do that until they actually have.
I thought it was farther on us.
Plan Commission was at a weird time, so it had to wait basically an extra month in addition to all the months it was already waiting.
Okay, anything else for staff?
Just props to Ross. This is the best staff update style that I've seen in any meeting. With a presentation like this is a treat.
You're here.
They were talking about the presentation, not the content. Both. Content was good. Both. Good progress being made. All right, on to our only other main item, which is the discussion of the MPO draft 2025 to 2029 TDP, Transit Development Plan. So, Ross, you are our conduit back to the MPO. How would you like to run this?
So my thought was basically if you guys have comments on this draft version of this plan, I can take those and relay them to the MPO. I also thought basically the MPO did not have an opportunity to put recommendations into this version of the plan because of time constraints. So they will be adopting recommendations based on this plan at a later date. So I thought that was another good opportunity for feedback on those,
What we think
on
the
their upcoming
recommendation should be.
recommendations. Yeah.
Well, who has comments to pass along? I know I have some. Anybody else?
I have kind of a timing or a process question, just because when I go back to the TDP site on the MPO page, or the TDP page, it says that yesterday, the 8th of January, there was a NPO policy board meeting and a presentation on the TDP was given. So were you attending that, or were you?
So I am not on the MPO policy board. I am on the technical advisory committee of the MPO. So I was not at that meeting, no.
Okay. Do you know what the purpose of that meeting was? It just after it says the policy board postponed action on the TDP until February. So
I think the purpose of that meeting was to review the TDP and then.
Same thing we're doing.
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Review the draft, take feedback.
And I don't know if it's on that page that you're on or not, but there was basically a separate statement that said comments are due for review at this policy board meeting by this date, which was prior to this meeting that we're having. But comments would still be taken after that fact.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I guess I'll start just to get going here. So I handed to Ross a copy of my notes, and in the left column, some of them are marked with typos where the obvious editorial problems like a paragraph repeated that didn't get caught. I marked a couple of them as recommendations, and then there were some factual things that I knew about, for example, bicycle-friendly businesses. And then I have some recommendations. So I'll do those first, I guess. I think that back when the big falderall of planning the metro reorganization, they wanted to know whether we wanted something that emphasized coverage or something that emphasized ridership. And I argued at the time that that was a false choice, that we needed both coverage and ridership. And that's going to take more money. And I think that, you know, everybody who wants transit, you know, wants it to be convenient to them. And everybody who uses transit wants it to go more places and run more frequently and run for longer hours. And all of that is going to take money. And so I think the biggest recommendation is get more money. And I think, you know, that's a political process. And there is apparently money, as we've all heard, and everybody wants that state surplus. But I think it should be the official position of Fitchburg and the League of Municipalities and this commission and so on that the taxes should not be cut, but that the state should be distributing more money to municipalities, and by the way, schools, but that's another issue. And I think that the political climate with the narrower margins and a Democratic governor, we at least have the potential to have honest discussions about this in the state capitol. And I told Randy Udell that I would be lobbying for the city of Fitchburg for more municipal aid from states, and I hope that he would support that. And he's a Democrat, and of course he does. But that's something that I think that transit agencies all over the state need to do. Also, transit is perhaps imperiled at the federal level, and that's going to be a political process to protect it. So we do need more money, and that should be a recommendation. There is a recommendation in there, or they refer to the recommendations of the Regional Transit Authority when it existed some years ago, when it briefly existed. And there was recommendations in the CARPC Madison 2050 development framework that we should have a regional transit authority with dedicated transit funding based on a sales tax, for example. So I think that we want all those recommendations in the supplement to this plan. There was a recommendation. I would recommend that we have more service in Fitchburg. Clearly, we need the east and west sides connected. On page, looks like 24 of the document, 28 of the PDF, the RTA plans did have a bunch of recommendations, and I think they were all good ones, except for the ones that are already done. Some of them have been implemented, like BRT and electric buses. They had a it says it has no recommendations, but there were some recommendations. And the recommendation on page 57 to have the metro policies refer to residents instead of citizens, I agree with that. And there's a similar, so I strongly agree with that. There's a similar thing where they say in the same paragraph, they want to change accessible to ADA compliant throughout the languages of the metro transit policies. I think that's a good idea. So those were the things that I had for recommendations so far. Now there could be more detailed recommendations, like we need to stop at a certain place, or a certain stop is not needed and should be removed to speed a route, but I didn't do any of that. Does anybody else have any recommendations that they would like to share?
Well, I agree with your observation that at the outset of the document, it says that this document does not contain any recommendations. We didn't have time to develop recommendations, and we'll develop them in the future. And then as you read the document throughout, there are recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you would think that a plan is nothing but recommendations.
I was left confused as to whether that just meant, well, those are the recommendations we've had in the past and we haven't updated them, or if they're just contradicting themselves by saying we don't have any recommendations, and then they couldn't help themselves but put recommendations in here. So that left me sort of a little bit jaded about the whole document, because it wasn't clear to me if they understood they were making recommendations or not.
When I read the bike and ped plan, which is for another topic, our bike and ped plan is very clearly has existing conditions and recommendations, and this very clearly had existing conditions and no recommendations section. They had, as you observe and as I observe, little scattered recommendations, or they parroted other people's recommendations that they pointed out were existing conditions that these people had recommended something. So
it felt a little bit, or it feels a little bit like a document where, like, tell you what, I'll write chapter 1, you write chapter 2, you write part of chapter 3, and then we'll put it all together and we'll kind of see how it looks, rather than it being, it's very lengthy and in some cases gets a little bit preachy or scolding in parts.
in the equity section you were talking about?
There's a part, or, the discussion about how Madison's doing it right and our other, partner cities are not, keeping up, or that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
I remember
some of that. So it was hard. I mean, I tried to prepare as much as possible for this discussion, but it was hard for me to figure out what exactly I would be bringing to this discussion based on a 105-page document.
I was fully expecting plan, and I went through the executive summary more carefully than the rest of the document, and I came away from it thinking, so what's the plan?
Yeah. Well, they seem to be talking about the plans that they had already adopted.
Yes.
That were underway. For example, they talked about the plans for North-South BRT and what the status was. And they talked about the plans for B-Cycle and what that status was. But it kind of ended where any current plan ended and didn't attempt to break any new ground.
I was also a little disappointed when the data was presented that it lacked anything from 2024. Like, we've now finished
Felt like
2024.
they put it to bed around 2020. end of 2023 or something.
so
Well, they also talked about how this document has been postponed continually from 2017 onward.
Yeah, but once they wrote it, and now we're seeing it as a draft, and it doesn't seem to have, one of my comments is that where they say construction of the some places they go into pretty great detail about the rollout of the BRT in 2024. Other places, they talk about construction started in 2023 and will continue in 2024,
Yes.
even though all that construction is done and we're in 2025.
And it projects future ridership at a time point when we
Which is
know
not in the past.
what ridership is so far, or at least, I couldn't find anywhere else where there was up-to-date ridership data through the end of December 2024 on any of the Madison transit sites or anything like that. So
it does usually take them a month-ish to get me data. So I think especially with the holiday season, I would not expect December 2024 data for at least a few weeks.
but should this document, before it's finished, contain that?
I think that's a comment you can make on it.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Other recommendations for the document?
So they talked about how there's over 1,800 bus stops and 230 some have a shelter. I feel like that's where some of these dollars ought to be spent. If only 1 out of every 8 bus stops has protection from the weather, that's kind of poor.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, is that we in Fitchburg should be saying, well, we want better bus stops. I'm less concerned about the rest of the system, but even Fitchburgers who come here to come home should be able to have shelters where they wait. And of course, we'll have shelters, nice deluxe shelters on the BRT route, but not all our routes are BRT.
We also have 7 shelters that we got grant funding for last year that our streets crew is trying to find time to install. So we have 7 shelters that we've picked out locations for.
Do we have other shelters that are at places that are no longer stops that could be moved elsewhere?
We've got one at a spot that's no longer a stop that we can move. And then all the ones on Fish Hatchery Road, once the BRT goes in, those will be available for use in other places.
Hello.
Hello.
Didn't know they were there. I just came to sign some papers.
Well, we'll try not to disturb you.
And to that point, something that I still am really struck by was from our Week Without Driving, Alder Gerhardt, when you were at the bus stop right where the quarry is, and that's all getting redeveloped. So that one probably won't be an issue, but there are so many stops where you're just getting dumped on the side of the road. The ones in Swan Creek, for example, don't even have a concrete pad. So, and I think of in the winter, well, I guess it's winter now, we have no snow, thank goodness, but when we get a foot of snow, it's harder to clear it if it's on grass, and how would somebody in a wheelchair or with a stroller, for example, get onto the bus if they have to trudge through the snow? So I think bus stop improvements would be a high recommendation on my list, even if it is just the concrete pad. Benches would be great, trash cans would be great, shelters would be great, but I think would be happy just starting at the bare minimum and making sure that we have some sort of solid, easily clearable and maneuverable surface that clarifies exactly where the buses start and stop too, so that if somebody thinks they see the sign that says board at the corner and then they stand by the sign instead of at the corner, and they're half a block away, and that causes the delay in boarding or deboarding.
So this is just a suggestion from me. That can definitely still be a comment I pass along. That can also be addressed at the Fitchburg level. Fitchburg owns and maintains all of the bus stops in Fitchburg, except for a couple, but don't worry about that. So we have been replacing bus stops that don't have concrete pads with concrete pads as budget allows with our sidewalk project. And then we've applied for grant funding for these shelters. Additional capital funds designated for those two things would speed that up greatly. We could have as many shelters and concrete pads and benches as we want to fund.
Yeah. I just like the idea of having it codified in one document that says, especially, as I think Rick, you kind of pointed out, where it was a little bit like Madison's doing it great and some of the other cities aren't, to kind of say, let's all get on the same page and try to aspire to this level so that the next plan says, we've all reached this same common baseline and made these efforts in conjunction, because, obviously the transit doesn't stop at the city lines. So, if somebody's getting on in Fitchburg and there's not something in Madison or vice versa, they're still having that barrier. To that end also, I think, I don't know if this was in the past plan, I can't remember off the top of my head. I did look at the 2013 to 2017 one. I would like to see something about the kind of that last mile included, whether it's just saying that we should aspire to and focus on pedestrian-oriented connections from where people are getting on and off the buses, so that if they're not getting on and off a bus onto a busy road with no sidewalks. There's a stop on Rimrock I think it's in Southdale, kind of just south of where Rutabaga is there, and what is that, 89th Degree Street, where the road goes from 4 lanes down to 2, and the bus just keeps going on the shoulder and just drops somebody off. There's no sidewalks, there's no crossings, and then you're just on Rimrock Road. And if you're living on, let's say on Maloney, or where some of those new townhouses are proposed on the east side of Rimrock, but you're getting off coming south and you're getting off on the west side of the road, there's nowhere good to cross unless you want to backtrack quite a ways. So I think that's another barrier that that I've certainly seen even just on my limited ridership, that I think would be a barrier to somebody even potentially considering using the system if they can't safely get to the bus or from the bus to their destination.
Did anybody else click through to the pedestrian facilities map? That's maintained by the MPO, and it is frigging amazing. It covers Fitchburg. Let's see if I'm doing this right. I gotta wait for it to fill in. But you can see the
What
vast.
page is this link on, Steve?
Or
I can find it and put it up on the screen. Is what I'll attempt to do.
Is this one of the footnotes?
Yeah, yeah. It says, you can see that. But if you zoom in, it's got all the curb ramps marked. For example, in this intersection here, one of the sides of the intersection doesn't have a curb ramp. This is in Quarry Hill by chance. But you can see Fitchburg's vast deserts of sidewalkless areas, like the one I live in here, are older neighborhoods. And would be very easy. I'm thinking for the bike and ped plan that this would be a great tool to guide our walk audits and bike audits.
Fitchburg also has GIS maps of all our sidewalk, curb ramps, and stuff too. So,
all right,
we have those in our GIS.
I'm sure that there is lots of data going back and forth between the MPO and Fitchburg, but I thought that was a really great tool that I was not aware of, and now I know that there are 2 of them. Can't see my cursor. Anyway. Shelters are not mapped on this, although they're very important. Other comments?
While we're talking about first and last mile, there is a fair amount of verbiage in the plan document about B-cycle. And that's great, but B-cycle is seasonal. And it'd be awesome if it was available year-round. And I don't know that the MPO is gonna have a lot of say in whether that could be the case, but I do feel like it's great that they talk about it, but it's not a solution people can rely on if it's not always available.
You reminded me of a recommendation, which is that Metro should coordinate more with B-cycle to provide last mile traffic so that, for example, B-cycle stations in residential complexes that don't have transit service and B-cycle stations at the nearest transit station to those complexes, so that people can get back and forth from areas that don't have transit to get that last mile done. So that I believe should be a strong recommendation, that micromobility should be part of the total transit solution. And one of the things we're taught by bike share companies is that B-cycles, that a lot of people say, oh, it would be fun to park in a parking place and hop on a B-cycle and go for a ride on the Cap City Trail. No, they're part of the transit system. They're really used, especially in Madison, not as much in Fitchburg, more for transportation than recreation.
I also highlighted the paragraph about B-cycle, and I kind of highlighted it with a bit of an eye toward it feeling more like wishful thinking than actual supported data, that expanding B-cycle would increase transit usage. That just seemed like, wouldn't it be great if that happened, rather than there being any evidence that someone rides a B-cycle to reach a bus stop and then parks the B-cycle and gets on a bus. And
I do that.
And so n equals 1 or 2.
It's interesting because I hadn't using the bus, and the B-cycles helped made it feasible.
Okay.
It changed the calculation for me to be like, instead of having to do a 25-minute walk,
Yeah.
20-minute walk, I could do a 5-minute B-cycle.
I don't know how, beyond just some people raising their hands, though, we would have data that said that that was happening.
Well, B-cycle knows where all the trips go.
Right.
So that is one potential source.
There's also, there's plenty of evidence worldwide.
Yeah.
If you, like the Netherlands, they have these, at their train stations typically, they'll have these bike parking facilities that hold 12,000 bikes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I've seen them, and they don't look like Madison or Fitchburg, Wisconsin.
No, but the idea is that people will take a bike to the transit station.
Yes.
And if that bike happens to be B-cycle, if it's during the time of year and you happen to have a station near where you live, I think that most definitely will encourage people to use transit. Another thing that would help people use transit is, in addition to having a B-cycle station near the transit, have secure bike parking. So that if there's no B-cycle station near you, you can go from your garage to the transit station on your bike, lock it up, and then take the bus into town.
I can ride to Hatchery Hill on my bike and get the B into downtown.
Right.
But bike parking is few and far between at Hatchery Hill. Better to take my bike to the library,
Get a B-cycle.
and then ride the B-cycle to the Hatchery Hill B-cycle station. The transit app that Metro recommends also allows you to unlock B-cycle bikes. So that's another source of integration, and the app provider might be another source of data on who's riding to the bus.
To the best of my knowledge, there's no cost reduction if if I use
There's no transfers.
B-cycle to get to a bus or vice versa, right? I've got a B-cycle cost regardless of what my next mode of transportation is, and I've got a bus cost regardless of whether I rode a B-cycle to get there or not.
Correct. The dockless bike share stations like Lime and Jump are typically by the minute or the mile for each ride, and there might be an undocking fee. The dock systems like B-Cycle tend to operate on a pass form. So my B-Cycle rides are all, unlimited B-Cycle rides are already covered in my membership, and therefore there's not the opportunity to discount.
It's just the $165 you pay for the yearly pass, right?
Yeah.
But individual rides are expensive.
Individual rides are really not the intended market too.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, they would do things differently if they wanted to promote people. What they're really looking for is to cultivate a community of B-cycle users instead of people coming into town to take one ride. It's fabulously expensive.
But to Bill's point about winter, like even if B-Cycle was available in the winter, I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't use it in the winter.
Yeah.
I don't think I would. Yeah. So and I don't even think it would be feasible because like obviously if it's big snow, I can't imagine B-Cycle would keep up with it where it's gonna be inconvenient to dock and undock. I don't know. I'm just gonna be honest. And I think winter is just a challenging thing. There's not everyone's willing to do biking in the dead of winter. I don't know. It's not to say that it's not important to get people.
You worked downtown. You can see all the people biking in the dead of winter.
I know, and I mean more power to them. But I don't know. I don't know that
not everyone. It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
No.
I'll just say too one comment. I learned a lot of things in the report.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about the round trip app or the round trip website, which I thought was interesting, and apparently ride shares can be organized there.
Yes.
And then I liked
you get a bike buddy too.
Yeah, which I will need to do when I learn how to bike to my workout place next year.
No
But not in the winter. But
We'll start you in the good weather.
yes, step one. But the specialized transportation services section that starts on page 23, there was a ton of programs that I'd never heard of.
There was like half that I didn't know about.
Yeah, and I
I
was
left myself
really,
a note to ping Jill McCone and see which
I
one
know.
she's familiar with. And
Exactly, 'cause
Whenever
she's
Jill
used it.
McCone talks about that stuff, and those social workers, they
They
spend a lot of time trying to get people places, and they know all of these programs backwards and forwards.
it's pretty
But
incredible.
whenever you hear Jill try to present, for example, to council on the problems that seniors have getting to the senior center, and she goes through these things, my eyes glaze over. But have it all written down and organized by funding source and all the detail that's necessary to tell you every restriction was very useful.
Yeah, this is
And
great.
My wife, who is a patient advocate, we just got one of her patients qualified for paratransit. So I was interested in reading about that. And then I was interested in Road to Recovery, which was mentioned, which is an American Cancer Society program to take cancer patients to their treatment appointments. And that's exactly what this person was getting paratransit for. So I learned a lot from this. I learned.
If we could share this with the social workers at the senior center and see if there's anything missing, or, I mean, certainly share it so that they know, as long as, I assume they know about all of these, but like maybe there is one that they've never heard of. I thought the one that had 0% interest car loans was kind of fascinating. I was like, anyway, it was.
Yeah, I can definitely forward this to Jill.
Because maybe there's a program that should be highlighted in there that is not known to the MPO.
Yeah, the round trip emergency free ride home program, 6 $75 county-funded cab vouchers per year per person, aimed at transit and bicycle commuters. We make that known to every one of our bicycle-friendly businesses as part of our interview process for that, so that they are aware of that, because we take credit for having an emergency ride home program because it's countywide and every employer qualifies. You just have to sign up for your free round trip account. I learned that the CSOS Yes. Continue to meet. Do you represent Fitchburg on that meeting of stakeholders from the various communities that contract with Metro? Quarterly?
Yes, yeah. So
I used to be on that for many years.
Yeah, we don't we didn't meet in Q4, I don't believe. But yes, when we do have meetings, I'm
You're our representative, good. Well, I used to go to those, and I wouldn't mind going again if you ever can't attend one or something, or if you wouldn't mind a wingman. One other comment I had is that they talked about other existing studies relevant to transit, and what they did not talk about, Ross, was the Beltline PEL study. And the Beltline PEL study considered transit as a solution to Beltline congestion and rejected it. Considered the idea of basically buses that would follow the Beltline around and get some of the people who were in cars on the Beltline off of it, and they decided that that wasn't feasible, and I forget why. But that should be listed in these other studies. Other comments of any kind?
So maybe this falls under future agenda items perhaps, but there's a lovely map on there with Madison's TOD overlay, and I feel like we ought to have one for ourselves. And
zoning code rewrite.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah, that's
integrated into that existing Madison map would be nice. I mean, we had, back in 2008 or whatever, we said let's cluster all the development along the rail line because we were anticipating the RTA and rail transit for passenger rail. But I mean, that didn't pan out yet.
Still are. Yeah, for those who are not aware, the zoning code overlay in Madison allows for developers to have more density, more height, more stories, basically to encourage more residences and businesses near the proposed and now existing high-quality transit lines.
And Rick, you had brought up the lack of 2024 data. I thought it was also interesting. They had there's a graphic in there showing the projected change from 2016 to 2020 for households and employment per acre, the expected change. And it doesn't appear that they've taken BRT into account there. I mean, if you look at the east-west line and the north-south line.
Did you say till 2020 or
2050?
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just given all the development along the east-west line that's going on in Madison. I gotta believe that graphic needs to be updated.
Right. Yeah, there were some data points that were old.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if, obviously feel free to keep sharing comments. You can also feel free to email anything to me, and we can add it into the minutes, just so I think email would be easier for just having verbatim comments if that's something that's important to you guys. So,
do you need me to type these up or can you use them?
These should be good.
Okay. As you look at those, you can give me a jingle or email if anything seems inscrutable.
Sounds good.
I won't go through all the typos. That pedestrian facilities link is mentioned to two different places. And on one place, it goes to a NACTO page on some kind of pedestrian-friendly design, which is totally irrelevant to the discussion. In the later chapter, it goes to the right page. And so that is just a typo, but I had to track that down.
The name of the document is wrong too, if you want to tell them.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It comes up in the browser as the
electric
EV
vehicle
plan.
charging.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Does anybody have any other things that they would like to throw out for discussion now, in addition to whatever you're going to mail Ross?
I'll make mine very quick, just bullet points. I think it's been interesting, you know, I like to think we're a pretty well-informed group given our positions on the TTC, and it's still been interesting that, you know, many of us didn't know about some of these programs that are out there. So I think there's a gap in communication between all these really cool things are out there and people don't know to utilize them, and or people perhaps don't know if they, you know, that they could volunteer and help with some of these programs. So I'd like to see some additional communication focused in there, and, you know, not getting it all the nitty gritty here, but I think it'd be great to have some more focused communications, things like, you know, maybe you sit down in some of these neighborhoods that have higher transit utilization and say, what is your daily commute, and map it out and say, well, you could take this, or you could do this, or you could do this, and if you qualify for paratransit, here's another option. Kind of like counsel folks through all the different options and programs out there. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of prioritize as well here is, if the goal is to increase ridership, one thing I think would be helpful in the recommendations is to encourage and to work with some of the largest employers in the area, and have that codified in there that, you know, we work with Promega or Sub-Zero or AmFam or Epic to see where, you know, where their needs are, and encourage them, you know, as we can from the city side, to adopt flexible work schedules that are more conducive to transit, that they publicize and offer, you know, maybe they offer a work incentive, like for the, you know, I work for the university, my day job, and we get a discounted bus pass. And that seems to be a good way to increase utilization. And that's less, I don't want to say it takes some of the burden off the city, but it kind of does. You know, and empowers others who want to make these changes, whether they're a small business or large business, and get them involved and engaged in this process. And I'll stop there in the interest of time.
Well, just to add on to that, that I would put in a recommendation that transportation demand management, which is required by Madison, should be required by the other communities in the metro service area. What that would do is it would be at the time of the getting permits. So if you're putting in a big residential apartment, or you're putting in a shopping center or something like that, you would have an obligation to show how you were. And then there are many ways to do that, as you can see from the TDM page on the Madison website. It would be part of our zoning and land development code. We discussed it briefly when we were talking about that business, about getting rid of parking requirements.
I guess maybe I'll just acknowledge that, you know, the entirety of this, of public transit in this whole area is a result of trying to retrofit public transit into an area that's got a lot of sprawl. And so, I mean, it's a very difficult problem to solve, and you wind up with these, you know, potentially false dichotomies, but dichotomies nonetheless. Would you rather have, you know, more ridership or more coverage? And
I thought that came out very clearly in the discussion of microtransit and the same things that we have been struggling with, and they're talking about Fitchburg being a possible microtransit zone, and looking at the predicted subsidies, you know, $6.81 or something like that for a fixed route bus, and $65 for a microtransit, which is probably why our microtransit experiment didn't work out so well. All right, are we ready to leave this topic, or would anybody want to say something else? Well, thank you all for plowing through that document. I admit I did not read any of the appendices. They seemed more like compilations of data and things like that. and I didn't have time. I finished at like 4 o'clock. On to future agenda items. So we have already discussed that we will be having our Vision Zero recommendation, recommended ordinance next time. And would you like to be recognized, or?
Yeah, I want to say something. Okay.
Go.
Okay. So, what I am doing is that I am going to each commission at the beginning of the year to ask you guys what are the priorities for 2025. What are the things that you're planning to work, because I want to see they align with my priorities, with the council priority. So, you know what I mean? So, it's something that I started last week. The idea is if you have 1 or 2 topics that you think that we're going to concentrate and focus this year, which one, and if those projects and initiatives have any budgetary impact, I need to know that before CIP, if we start working on that. So I know that, Steve, you have a couple of ideas that we need to talk before we put together the CIP, so we can incorporate that in the CIP. So, but I am, it would be great for me to know about this before we start the process of the CIP, than, after, you know what I mean?
Indeed.
So that one is, something that I want to ask you. I know that Ross is the only one person in the traffic engineer, you know what I mean? So I know that sometimes his capacity is kind of like very limited, and we have a lot of ideas and projects, but then also we need to consider the staff capacity too. And I want to say thank you very much for your service and continue working on this. And the other thing that we need to understand is when we are going to go work through the comprehensive plan and the zoning code changes this year, and the idea is how we can, we are looking at the growth of the city and how we can, transit has to be part of that conversation, If we are very intentional to determine how we're going to grow in which areas, how we're going to bring the public transportation to that area. Because the city has done a very bad job in the past to build in neighborhoods, they haven't think about that part, you know what I mean? So this is what is important in each committee, when we talk about the growth of the city and planning, how also it's going to affect the transit, you know what I mean? And I think we need to look, we need to work as a team and integrate all of those puzzles, you know what I mean? Because also when we talk, we are having a discussion at council to build more workforce housing. And the conversation is okay, we want more workforce housing, but we need to be very intentional where we are gonna build those. Exactly, because we need to bring the transit too, you know what I mean? So yeah, maybe we have a great parcel in the middle of nowhere to build that, but
Transportation is the second biggest expense after your mortgage.
So this is what I think that we need to, I think this committee has to be very aligned with what we are doing and planning. This is what Gabriela is important to be here in this table, because she can say, okay, this is what the things that are happening in the planning committee, and this is the new project coming, and how it's going to affect all of that. So.
Well, with 2 of us being alders and 2 of us running for alder, we're going to have some, maybe have some turnover on this.
No, and this is the other thing that I am looking now. I received the list today, and I have all the people that they are determined expiring, and so if you know people that they are willing to serve in the committee, please. The idea is they need to start submitting those applications now in the next 2 months. So
just so everybody's aware, I believe we can only have 1 alder that's not a representative from another commission. So obviously right now Bill's our alder representative, Gabrielle's our plan commission representative, who also happens to be an alder. So if we have more alders,
you will be reassigned to other committees. And usually the Rockies go to the one that no one wants to go.
It was nice knowing you all.
Landmark preservation for you.
It used to be broadband, but that got I got this banded.
But yeah, so yeah, you make a good point.
So, and if anyone knows like you said, if
Yeah.
anyone knows anyone else who would like to be on this commission,
Especially if they have expertise.
Find my
at least
replacement.
one.
Find my replacement is what you're saying.
Maybe two.
Yeah, you need to, yeah, if you can, it will be, and I think we need to look geographically. I don't know, Steve, maybe you need to determine where we're missing people to represent in this table, you know what I mean, like.
I think that's important, but I think that getting people who actually use different parts of the transit system is important too. I will speak for this group of commissioners, not necessarily the ones post-April, that we are very interested in transit and improving it, and so that will be one thing that we work on. The other is safety and Vision Zero and things related to that. We want to coordinate with planning. Fortunately, the kind of neighborhoods that you build that are supportive of transit are also the kinds of neighborhoods that that pencil well for the university, for the municipality. They have good tax value per acre. So I think we will be on the same page working on transportation and housing.
Okay.
Any other comments to address the mayor's question? Things that we think are important?
I'll just give a quick
I think we
one.
should have a discussion about it.
Okay, what?
We should have an agenda discussion
Or what?
about priorities for.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't think we should have that discussion.
We had one a year ago in the spring before you were on, and that's when we came up with Vision Zero. And I think a good time to do that is now for the CIP, but in April when we have new commissioners is the time we did it last time. And I can see conflicting reasons about when we should do it at each time. But I can do this, since we're actually on future agenda items. If you could put a discussion item for next time for possible CIP projects that we think are something that we need in our transportation system or to reach our safety goals or something like that, that would require a CIP project. Would that help?
Yeah.
Okay, and I can tell you one thing is that with all of this federal money, we probably need a CIP project that contains matching funds for those projects.
And the other thing that I learned the other day about the BRTs, north-south, I don't know, maybe you, Ross, have heard that, is that the current matching formula is 80-20, 80 federal and 20 municipality. But I think now they are going to require the matching is going to have to be 50-50. To make this our project, the north to south BRT phase, they have more chances to get funded. This is what I heard from a mayor that is very involved in this, okay? Last Friday. So I think maybe if, maybe, we don't know yet, but it's a big probability that they are going to, if second phase will be funded, maybe it had to be an increase in the matching funds. With the previous, when Trump was president, most of the grants that they were more successful were the one that they have 50-50 chance matching grant. And maybe they think that it's gonna come back. You know what I mean? So is this one happen? I don't know. I think our part is covered, you know what I mean? Because we put a lot of millions of dollars for the BRT and the CIP. I think.
In our CIP is the 20%.
The 20? Well, but we can,
Yeah.
But we had more money last year from a future extension, you remember?
2033.
Yeah, but the CIP is a plan, you know what I mean? We move those. But I think that, you know what I mean, like, that one could be, but we don't know exactly what is going to happen with that yet, you know what I mean?
So remind us all, Ross, you probably know this the best, the current state of funding for the north-south route. There is some $100 whatever million that was supposedly secured, but just not yet dispersed and it would have
It is
taken an act of
recomm-
Congress
The
to.
It's recommended, it
Yeah.
has not been
Yeah,
allocated.
allocated.
Oh,
So it's been, I believe it's been recommended by a congressional committee, but not allocated by the full body.
Yeah.
my recollection though was that you had said it would take an awful lot of effort to rescind that recommendation.
Yes, but I don't know how much effort people are willing to go to rescind it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if it doesn't go through, I'm gonna put this personally on you.
That's fine.
One of them girls.
So, but you tell me that the $3 million, whatever we put there, is only 20%? But we are gonna have 3 stations here.
We're getting pretty far off agenda topics.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we are.
I know.
We're pretty
No,
far
We can
off.
talk, yeah, we can talk.
Don't talk about that, yeah.
We'll talk about it.
That's
right.
it.
So we will discuss possible CIP
Okay.
projects at our February meeting, and Ross will get back to you.
Okay.
And we have a couple of CIP projects in terms of bike things
Yeah.
that you know about. Okay. Any other future agenda items?
Yeah, so I did click into one of those appendices, and it was, it reminded me that in our comprehensive plan, one of our policies is to annually develop a 5-year transit improvement plan for the city. And I think the last one we did was in 2022.
Well, find 5 years is 27.
Well, no, it says annually update the
Annually.
5-year plan.
Okay, so
Ross.
have we, can you locate the last transit development plan?
You can
Ross?
locate it easily enough by searching our website.
Yeah.
You'll find it right away.
Friendly, it's
I feel like it was like the last thing Andrew did.
Yeah.
So whenever he left, I remember us working on it.
So, yeah, so let's
2023.
put that on as a future agenda topic is without a month. Is the transit development plan.
Sounds great.
And if you wanna take a look at that, Ross, and figure out when to blast it out to committee members, commissioners, and when we should discuss it here, and what needs to be done to it, that would be a good thing.
You said transit development plan, but you said transit improvement plan.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was confusing it with the thing that we were talking about
Yes.
this evening.
So that's what the Fitchburg
We don't
calls
want-
a transit improvement plan?
Correct.
We don't want a transit demolition plan.
As long as it's at least 105 pages long, I think.
No, I think we want to go shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
as we are
yeah, so it
smaller
looks like maybe it's
jurisdictions.
just the,
9 pages.
yeah.
Be okay.
All right, in the interest of time, we're on to announcements. We will meet again on February 13th. I also wanted to announce that I'm attending later this month the a book club. It's a spin-off of the District 11 book club by Bill Tischler. And it's being held at Machinery Row, and the book is Killed by a Transportation Engineer. Have you heard of that book?
I think you brought it to a meeting.
Have you read it?
I've not read it. I've read.
I can lend you my
I
copy.
know the
You know the
summary.
underline.
Yeah.
So they are having 3 meetings. The first one is to discuss the book. The second one is to discuss Madison transportation infrastructure related to, or that may be influenced by some of the problems that the book lays out. In the third meeting, those issues are going to be presented to some Madison transportation traffic engineers who will be in attendance. So it seems like a pretty cool thing. I think I'll be at the first one for sure. So if anybody else is interested, and there still may be free books, copies of the book at Machinery Row that were purchased for the book club by Madison Bikes to give away to people who signed up for the book club. So, any other announcements?
I've got a couple. So we're required to have chair elections every May of odd years. So just FYI to everyone, that's something that we'll do at our May meeting.
With our new
members, yeah. And then I was recently appointed to the Village of Oregon Public Transit Committee. So if they have any good ideas, I'll share them with this committee.
Okay.
So.
Congrats.
You read the part about their thing in this transportation plan, right? About the studies
Yes.
that they've been doing.
Yeah.
Do you live in Oregon?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and is that a citizen appointment for you?
Yes.
Or some kind of ex officio?
Congratulations. Kind of. I was like, should I even apply for this? It's just like
You're not qualified.
You know.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, thank you, Gabriella and Rick. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone.